Hi, I'm Ginny. I've been painting for over 40 years and I use the wet into wet or alla prima method, and I want to share with you what I have learned. You can oil paint too, so let's have some fun. Okay, today I'm painting a design I call Morning Snowfall. I have already prepared my canvas by applying my pattern, my drawing, with a black transfer paper on a white canvas. Now I've also added a little bit of a medium. I've already added a painting medium to my canvas. I use safflower oil with a little bit of an alky dryer in it, and I put a very thin even coat over the entire canvas. The colors that I'm going to use today: titanium white, cad yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, phthalo blue, sap green, and ivory black. I've made a couple of mixes here, but I will probably make some others as I go along. The mixes will be in the written instructions, and I'll talk about them a little bit as I start to paint. Now I've got a brush here that has got some color on it from another painting, but that's okay. I can clean it off as I go. I know this barn's going to be brown, so I'll just kind of put that in there, just kind of show what that's going to be. I'm going to have some brown in there. All right, I'm going to start with my sky, and I'm going to mix some alizarin crimson and some cad red, because I want a nice dark, kind of a dark red color to start. This is very bright painting. So right along the horizon back in here, I'm going to start with some very, very dark red. What I'm doing, and I'm going to continue that into my water, just kind of pull that color down into my water a little bit. Right in there. And I think that might be a little too dark, so I'm going to go back to my alizarin, or to my cad red. Let's add a little bit of cad red and yellow ochre together. It's going to get me a little paler. Oh, there we go. That's the color I'm looking for. Cad red. The reason I use the medium on my canvas is because you can see how easily and quickly I can get that paint on there, and then it spreads very easily. I'm going to continue this color a little bit over behind my tree shape here. A little bit of that. I like a little bit of that red, the dark red, right along that horizon. Just gives me a little bit, and then I can take that. I took yellow ochre and cad red, give myself a little bit of a pale orange, and as I go up you can see that my color gets less and less, and that's good. I kind of want that. Then as I go up even further here, I'm going to take cad red and cad yellow, and I'm going to put those colors in. And I'm just taking my brush. I've got a 3/4 inch flat brush here, and I'm just taking my brush and continuing those colors up. Now I've because I've mixed these colors right on my brush, I have multiple colors on there. And I like that because as you go up, you can see that I get both of those colors coming off my brush. As I go up, I'm just going to get a little lighter up here. Oops, that's a little too bright. I'm going to add a little white, little cad red. There we go. A little cad red, a little yellow, a little bit of white. I just want that to be not quite so bright up there. And I'm just going back and forth and letting the amount of paint on my brush kind of helps determine how much paint is here, and it gets lighter as it goes up. It's taking it all the way across. I'm just going to let this be my underpainting of my sky. I'll add more details and more paint. I know that in here I'm going to want this cloud area to have some purple, so I'm going to take some, I've got Prussian blue and alizarin crimson, and I'll pick up some white. And I'm going to get a little bit of a purple going in here. My clouds are going to have, this is a very simple painting. My clouds are going to have purple shadows. You can take these colors. It's purple. I've got a little bit of brown that's going to go in here. I'll take that down into my I'll take that down into my water because I know this is going to be brown. I'll just underpaint this a little bit with some brown. Now to make brown, I took sap green and alizarin crimson and made kind of a warm brown. Again, I'm letting my brush strokes kind of create that texture there on my barn. I'm trying to go straight down. There. I'll detail this out later. Darker right along the edge there. It's going to be darker in the inside here in my, just the width of my brush for my barn door. A little darker on this side. Okay, I'm just doing basics right now. I'm going to clean that up with a little bit of red right there. All right, now go back to my purple and my sky up here, my cloud. My pattern kind of has the indication of that shadow of the cloud, and then I'm just going to let it. I'm going to let my brush strokes be very loose up here. Let the loose brush strokes kind of create that inside of that cloud for me. And I can take my mop, just gently soften those colors together. I'm getting rid of brush strokes mostly and softening those colors. Now I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Prussian blue is what I'm using here. A little more blue to kind of get A little bit of more texture there. A little lighter along the edge. Just going to pick up a little white and mix that right in my brush and blend it right on the canvas. Just to get a little bit lighter out here on the edges. Again, very loose, quick strokes, not trying to get real fancy. Just creating texture and some lights and darks. I'm just barely touching the canvas with my mop. Then right along the edges here, I'm going to go up here and lighten my edges of my cloud. And I just picked up some of that cad yellow and cad red, because I know I want this cloud's edges to be brighter. Got the sun coming up right there. So I know we're going to have some light. Right along the edges of my cloud. And we'll add some even brighter colors up here in a bit. Okay, I'm going to look at my colors down here. These need to be a little brighter, maybe. Brighten that edge there just a little bit. I'm going to use my mop to get rid of brush strokes, but in the meantime, I just want to get some more color on there. Then I can take my mop. Soft edges recede, so I want these edges of the cloud, I want the edges of the different color values up in here, I want those to recede into the background. So I'm just getting rid of brush strokes and softening those colors together. A little bit more color over here on the other side of my tree. You can still see my pattern back there, but it's a simple tree shape, so I'm not too worried about losing it. But I do want it to have some of this color behind it and in and around it. Very light. See how when I soften the edges of these colors, it really helps them just kind of recede into the background a little bit more. Very, very soft, gentle strokes. Okay. Now I know I want my sun coming up there to have some brightness to it. I'm going to take and double load my brush. By that I mean I'm going to take one color on one corner and another color on another corner. See, I've got kind of the red there and a pale yellow on this side. So I can take it, I can set my brush down right in there, and that edge that I want brighter, I'm going to turn the brush and just let it kind of give me that outside edge that is a little lighter. Also helps me keep my my shape nice and round. Let the brush help me with that. And I'm going to blend away my bottom edge. I can use my mop for that as well. And then I'm going to go back with some brighter yellow and white, because I know I want that top edge to be nice and bright. Yellow and white. Again, soften this whole thing. With my mop. And I can use a smaller brush to go back with that brighter yellow again. I can even take my finger. I want that paint to be a little thicker than that, so I'm going to take my finger, add thick paint. Just blend it right on the canvas, right there. Yep. There we go, a little thicker paint. Right there. And then the edge that's kind of, I want that bottom edge to kind of disappear. Okay? We'll leave that for now. We'll come back and see if we can get a little brighter edge. Got a lot of paint on there, so I take my brush and lay it flat down and just offload the paint right there. There we go. That's pretty good. Soften that bottom edge. Just tapping. And I'll work on that a little bit more. I want a little bit more of a roundness there. But for now, I'm going to continue on. I know my clouds up here. I want these edges up here to be nice and bright. Think about the sun coming over here and hitting the edges of these clouds. White with cad yellow, a mixture there. Thicker paint. Letting my paint be a little thicker along these edges. Highlights should always be with a thicker paint. Just letting it kind of tap my brush, just kind of laying the paint on there. Now the key here is, and what gets people in trouble so much, is that you have a tendency to want to go back and blend all this together. And the key here is to put the paint on there and then just leave it alone. I know it's hard, it's very hard, but that's part of the learning process. You have to learn Because sometimes you just got to leave the paint alone. And don't blend it all away. The more you blend, the more it's going to turn into one color. And we don't want that. Now if I want to soften my edges, right here, I can just take my mop and just barely tap that bottom edge to let the bottom edge be a little softer. I'm going to pull that color up into this cloud right there. Okay? Now I can go up here to my clouds up in here and I can add more color. Give myself some hints of other clouds up in here. By adding some contrasting colors down below. Again, mopping away my brush strokes, because all I want is the lights and darks of the color. I don't want necessarily to have the brush strokes there. These are very soft. A little bit of light maybe on some of the tops up here, right there. Let the bottoms have more color. Maybe a little one right in here. Again, mop. Try not to touch the tops, just mopping below. I'm going to go ahead and take my color down into my snow. Right along here is that horizon line. So I'm going to take a very pale pink right along the horizon line there. I'm using alizarin crimson and white and a touch of cad red in it. I just want that to be very pale back in here. And I want to smooth along that edge so that it almost disappears. Very soft right there. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the purple, light purple, down below that. And then I'm going to grab that white and get some nice white coming down from there. I want to keep that gradation right there from the light pink to the purple and then coming down into the white. So the white ends up not being pure white, but having a little bit of those colors in it. We're going to have shadows over here coming out of the barn, around the barn. So that's kind of purples and blues. And we'll let those sneak down into our snow here. Now I'll go back and add some highlights to these, to the snow in the background here. But I want to get these dark blues. Kind of shows you the lay of the land by the direction of your brush strokes. Right down to the bank here, a little darker along the bank right there. And I'm using purples and blues for shadows. Nice little shadow there. There's a shadow right behind the tree right there. And there's going to be shadows down here. And I'm just picking up Prussian blue, alizarin crimson with a little white in it. Because these are shadows. Rough texture here. It's going to go right in there. It's going to go down this hill here. We've got some weeds and things coming up there. Pull a little bit of this shadow in here. I can go ahead and put in some color into my water here simply by looking at what's above it. And pulling that down. I'm just pulling this all straight down for now. Go back to my browns up here. I'm going to use a smaller brush to detail this out, but again, I'm just getting in those colors, and then I can take that brown down into my water here. And I'm pulling this water up into that brown, because I want this to be a little darker down in here. Again, thinking about what's up here, I'm going to put that in there. Use the edge of that cloud a little bit. Use my mop. I'm going to pull these colors down. I do want a little bit of that purple in this area here. Purple and blue in with my barn. colors. There we go, pull this down. Maybe a touch of that right there. And then I'm going to use my mop just to soften the edges of these colors a little bit. Pulling first down, and then I can just pull over here and there just to soften it, makes it look more like water. And I'll go back and add some strokes of ripples in a little bit. Going back over here to the snow, just getting in some snow. A little bit of white, it's got a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple in it. And I softened back here because the horizon, I want it to look farther away. So I just softened this color down into my land right there. Next I'm going to put my tree in, and then I'll go back and detail my snow and my barn. Well, actually I can go ahead and do the barn's roof. The barn's roof over here is going to be the blue and purple. And I'm just pulling my stroke down in the direction the angle of the barn right there. And then a little light on this side. Gives me a little bit of snow on that side. A little bit of snow right up here. And this side of the barn is going to be darker. It's away from the sun. Away from the light. Just added a little blue into my brown. There's a shadow right there. And then again that inside of that barn right there is darker. Added a little blue to my brown. And I'll detail that out with a smaller brush here in a little bit as well. Now that's sap green and alizarin crimson brown. I'm just going to put that in. I'm just going to start laying that in as the basis of my tree trunk. And you can see that it's going to have some of that color as I go up right in my tree trunk. And that's actually a good thing. I'm just going to leave that for now. I can even take a little bit of that bright red right along that edge, or my dark red mixture right along that edge. And I can take a little bit of the purple right there along this edge, just to give me a little darkness, a little dark reflective shadow in there. And using just the tip of my brush, I can go up through here and give it a little texture right in the center there. Leave that, have a little more texture, a little brighter orange maybe out here on the right here where the light really would hit it. I'm just taking cad red and yellow, just to give myself a little bit brighter highlight right there. Then I'm going to start on the boughs of the tree with a dark purple. Purple is going to be my shadow color. So I'm going to take alizarin crimson and phthalo blue and a little bit of white. I don't want it to be quite as dark as just those two colors together, so a little bit of white. And I'm going to get a fairly dark purple. And I'm just going to use the tip of my brush, and I'm going to start getting those it's the bottom edge that I'm thinking about in terms of the dark of these branches as they come down. There's one that kind of comes down this way. And I'm just letting the chisel edge of the brush kind of create that ragged edge where it would be the palm coming out. Now I know there's going to be some that come out this direction, so I'm going to let my dark fill in those indication of those little branches coming out that way. But again, I'm just using the dark to kind of sketch in my tree, sketch in those bottom edges. A little lighter up here. But nice and dark right in the center area where these branches would be coming out towards me. There's a couple that come right on down and touch the snow right over here. They're so snow laden that they actually come in and touch our snow over here. Now that's our basic shape of our tree. I've got a little bit of dark green. I made with sap green and black. And I'm going to put some of this in the center, sap green and black, maybe with a touch of cad or yellow ochre. I'm going to put some of this color in here because this is an evergreen tree. And although our shadows, which are really the shadows of the snow, the shadows of the snow are going to be that nice dark purple, we will see some of our green showing through. I'm back with a little bit of our green in here. Okay, now I'm going to take, my next color is going to be a light purple. White and some of that dark purple to give me a little bit lighter purple. So I want that light purple to show up against my dark purple. Wipe my brush off, pick up some of that, and I want to lay in kind of the underside of the snow that's going to be laid on top. See if it's nice and thick, for instance, right there, and if I take my white, and I do a layer of that on top of that snow, let me get a little thicker. See, now I've got various shades of that snow laying on there. And I'll go back and even add thicker. But for now, I'm doing my next layer, which is kind of the shadow of how that snow is laid on there. I'm not covering up all my dark. I'm just kind of laying this shadow of the light snow. Every time I go back, I get clean, wipe my brush so that I get a little clean color on there. And then think of this as layers of snow and the shadow that those layers of snow would make. These branches have caught the snow, and it's just laying on them. So that layer of snow would have a shadow underneath of it. I'm still going to leave that dark under there, and I'm going to leave that green under there. So I'm being careful not to get rid of that. and put this snow layer on top of that. And this goes right off the edge up here. This tree is taller. Again, there are going to be some that are coming forward. So I'm going to put snow on some of these that are coming towards me. It's kind of like a little triangle of snow right here coming out. Just using the edge of my brush to let that kind of indicate that. Nice thick up there. Okay, now I can go back with my smaller brush, and on some of these tree branches I want to lay a little thicker paint. Again, I'm making sure that once I put paint on, I go over here and wipe off any of the underpainting color that I picked up. Now I can also, right in the middle here where I have some of the branches that are maybe on the other side of the tree, I can add a little bit of light in here. So that it's not quite so choppy. I want that light to show up back in there. go back in with lighter purple again. I want to kind of fill in a little bit of these spaces with some shadowy colors, not covering up all my dark. Softening these in here a little bit. Maybe the snow on top of some of these lower branches here, a little thicker, a little more like a layer of snow that you don't see the branches quite so much. Right along the top edge of some of these. As they would get back in here, it would be a little darker. So I don't want to lose my dark. Maybe there's a branch that comes out here that's a little stick that doesn't have anything on it, just kind of little indication of broken branch. If I lost my trunk, maybe go back and add my trunk here and there if I want. Okay, and around the bottom of my trunk, there's going to be a shadow. Wipe this off, get some light blue or purple right in there. Maybe there's a little bit of a broken shadow that kind of comes down here. Using a smaller brush now, going back in and doing a little detail around my edge of my pond. Oops, letting the water or the snow come down here. A little darker. Maybe down in here is a little darker before we start getting our little weeds come up there. Maybe this area down here is a little darker. Right along the edge of the pond, Probably also going to be a nice dark brown edge. Maybe you can see some little bit of earth ground coming through there. Go up here and detail my barn. I want the inside of this door to be nice and dark back in there. It can get a little lighter as it comes out. And then as it comes out here, maybe we can take that path back in there a little bit. Maybe there's some tire tracks or something coming out here. We can add that if we want. Right beside here is nice and dark. Underneath of the eaves of the roof there is a little dark. We'll let that edge be lighter. Definitely want this side of the barn to be darker. Under the eaves up here to be darker. Then I can add a little touch of that dark red mixture to the front of the barn. You could even make this a red barn if you wanted to, but I think the dark barn shows up a little bit better. There's a dark edge right there where the boards come down from there. A little texture. I'm going to add a little texture to my water here. I'm just going to add some lines, and it's really kind of just a touch of maybe the dark right in here. The brush is just going to give it the idea that there's a little bit of movement. I don't want to do too much movement. This is a winter pond. Okay, a little more darkness on this side of the roof. Gonna put a little bit of that purple there. A tin roof would and a white snow would reflect the color up there, so we'll let it be a little darker on that side. Then I'm going to go back with snow. Highlights, a little bit brighter light. Give the idea of maybe some drifting snow. A bit lighter snow in here. Comes off the edge here. Maybe there's a little bit of a lighter snow on that hill. bit lighter snow maybe on the banks here. And if you kept your snow with a little bit of color back in here, these highlights will then show up. But if you got your color too white back in here, then it will not. So just letting that be a little pile around that tree there. Now I can also take a tiny bit of yellow, tiny bit of yellow and white, just enough yellow to basically turn my white into an off-white. And I can add a little bit more highlight to some of these branches, especially the ones that are near where the light would hit them. Not over in here, maybe a little bit right here on this little area that is brighter. And then my little weeds in the snow, I'm going to start off with just some lines, and I'm using the very tip of my small brush. You could use a liner brush for this, but I'm just going to get some dark purples in here, especially along the base, so making them go different directions. If I have a chiseled edge on my brush, I can do these just by barely touching the canvas. Then I can take some light purple, see if that shows up a little bit. Then I'm going to take that light yellow, white, and add snow-covered lines. Again, just touching the canvas, just barely touching the canvas. Letting my strokes go different directions. Light is mostly on the top edges of these as they stick up. Maybe there's some at the edge of my tree here. Now I'm looking for areas that I need to lighten, like I want to lighten the edge of my little sun there. Pull that down. Maybe give the base of that just a little bit of a roundness. Almost not there. More shape to my cloud here, maybe. Just a touch. Again, I don't want that to be hard edged. I want that to be soft edge, so that it just looks farther away. The darker you make this area, the more cloudy it's going to look, and I don't necessarily want that. So I'm going to go in here with some lighter colors along the base. Oh, I like that. And I'll light that cloud up a little bit from the bottom inside here. Yellow, cad red. Again, I'm going to soften those edges. I don't want that to be, just want the color there, the light and the dark. That's good. Okay. My lines are too harsh. I can always take those out a little bit. And maybe right down in here, maybe this needs to be a little darker. Again, I first pull my water down. Pull the water down. And then I can go across. Add a few little lines. For a little motion. The only other thing I see is that maybe up here in my sky, I want this edge to be just a little brighter. Maybe a little of that light. Hitting that bottom edge. Okay, I'm going to sign my painting using my right down here in the area that's a little darker. I can use my wipeout tool to sign my painting right through the paint. And I can call this one finished. I sure hope you enjoyed painting this one with me, and I hope you come back and paint with me again. Thanks.